Hello, I'm Jennifer Bonnier, city producer for the Nashville 48-Hour Film Project, and I want to welcome you to the We Foster Film Nashville 48-Hour Film Project Workshop. This talkback was filmed live in front of a studio audience of aspiring filmmakers preparing to make a short film in just 48 hours during the 2022 Nashville 48-Hour Film Project. Expert filmmakers took time to discuss their approach to making a movie through both technical and creative discussions in their designated craft. We hope this shared information will both educate and inspire you to make your next film. We would love to see you out at one of our events and have you make movies with us right here in Nashville. For more information on the 48-Hour Film Project, please visit us on the web at 48hourfilm.com. And for more information about NECAT's ongoing We Foster Film program, visit us on the web at necatnetwork.org. Our next topic for the We Foster Film Nashville 48-Hour Film Project Workshop is editing and delivery with Ken Conrad.
Hello, let's talk about editing, which I feel like is the most important part of all of this. All that other stuff was neat, but this is way better. So, and delivery. It's usually the first step that we go through when you're setting up in pre-production and planning and getting your team together and everything is coming up with a plan and a schedule. Super important, and I think it'll help you later and pay off immensely. Like coming up with deadlines for yourself as an editor, talk with your director and your producers and come up with deadlines where you can accomplish things to make sure that you can move on to other departments, move on to other things, because there's a lot to do in this short period of time. So when do you need to have an edit lock? You know, when you're drop dead, you got to deliver, you have to have time to export. When do you need to deliver to audio? Talk with the audio department and make sure that you're communicating with them so that they have enough time to do the things that you need them to do to get it back to you so that you can meet the first thing when you need to lock edit and deliver. When should you start on VFX shots? Almost immediately is when I would start doing that stuff. Have that discussion. If you're going to have green screen, if you're going to have things that you need to put in or replace or things like that, talk to your VFX people. Make sure that you know how much time they need to do whatever it is. I mean, and a lot of the stuff you can talk about beforehand. It's like, hey, if we did green screen, you know, how much time is it going to take for you to do this? What are the ways that, you know, you need to shoot it in ways that we can get it to you so that you can get it back to us in time? And if you end up not doing green screen, that's fine. It's good information for later. But also for other things, like if you're going to, ask a lot of questions. Like go through a bunch of different films that you love. Maybe there's like certain elements of things that you like that you want to maybe accomplish. You don't know yet because you don't have a script, but just ask those questions so that you know that when you get into writing and when you get into pre-production for the shoot, you know what you can do. And then also for color correction. Usually color correction is happening at the same time audio is doing their mix. So, schedule that appropriately. Make sure that you're talking to whoever's doing your color correction to make sure that you can get the information that you have to them easily and get it back to you on time. Sometimes if you're editing and doing the color correction, make sure you know when you need to stop to start doing that. Titles and credits, these are also very important. And make sure that you have scheduled time to do those. If you leave them to the very end, then it's usually just like a few words on screen. You could do some fun, cool stuff. So usually if you can have a designer be working on that stuff simultaneously, that's great. And then you can just fill in odds and ends at the end rather than panically putting them together at the end, which we've never had that happen. It's never been a thing. So, all right. So setting this up, know your crew's strengths and weaknesses, and that's both on set, but also in your post. You know where people are strong and where people are weak, and work around that, because everybody's got different skill sets and not everybody can do everything. So know what you can do and then play to those strengths. So even in the post side of things, time is of the essence. Like we said before, having that schedule is so important. And it's going to get fuzzed and you're going to go over, and that's fine too. But having an idea of what you need to meet so that like if we're getting to the point where we're not going to be able to do this, you know that you can cut this corner and move on so that you can get finished on time. Thing they say a lot, just because it's different doesn't mean it's better. And that's a loop you can get stuck into, especially on the 48. You can keep changing things and tweaking things, but you got to take a step back and look at it and say, am I making a lateral move, or is this like, oh, this is so much better if I do this? Because if it's just a lateral move, you may not need it and just move on. And if it makes it better, then yeah, do that. The next one is asking your question, and this is the same thing as not next slide, but back next. Is it moving the story forward? It's the same thing with is it better or different? If it's not moving your story forward, you could probably lose it. Sometimes there's dialogue or parts of sentences that people are saying that you may not need, and you can cover up with a cutaway or something else and lose those seconds to move the story faster. Always look for those little things. Like constantly, I think a designer once told me they'll do all their typography and set it all out, and then they start taking things away to figure out what it is that they can live with, and you still get your message across. And I think that's important. And then if you have more time, you can start putting in, little extras if you feel you need it. Be cognizant of everybody else in your department. So VFX, audio, and your titles people. Are they waiting on things from you? Like, are there things that you could be handing over to them so that they could start working to get things accomplished? So having lots of communication, talking with your producer, make sure you're communicating with your director to make sure that everybody is getting everything they need. That's super, super important. And that'll help keep everything on track. So now I'm doing that. So all of that stuff has been planned and you've got that all figured out. Great. So you start getting your footage in. The first thing you should do as an editor, watch everything. I mean, not just from action to cut, but even before that. There's lots of little things that sometimes you'll get reactions from actors or just them standing sometimes is super helpful. Little snippets that you can pull out. We've on 148, I think there's a scene in one of the films that Maki and I did where a lot of the scenes that we took for a scene were these reactions of her listening to what Maki was telling her. And so we used a lot of those, and they were great. So you never know what you'll find in the before and after. So watch everything. Assembly cuts are incredibly valuable. As an editor, as footage is coming in, usually what I do is go through and just do basically like a kind of a string out of all the scenes with a wide angle camera, like the widest shot of your scene. And you can get an idea of how that scene is going to flow. And having that put together quickly is useful because it gives everybody an idea of, oh, this is working or oh, this isn't working right off the bat. And then you can start layering in all of your other edits on top of that and shoring it up and making it funnier, better, scarier, whatever it is. But at least oh, this is going to work. So you're going to, okay, you can move on. And if there's problems that you see right off the bat, that's something you can communicate with set and say, hey, I might need something here. Watch your assembly cut with key crew. This is super, super important. Getting a basic assembly done as quickly as possible. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. Trying to get it all together so at least you have something. And then watch it with your director and the producers. And let them be able to speak into that to know, okay, we're okay, or hey, what if we rearrange? Start making big overall decisions is super important right off the bat. It's also important to be sending that stuff to audio and VFX because they can start looking at it and thinking, oh, these are the things that I'm going to need to accomplish, and start preparing to do that stuff. For sound effects, they can start going through and figuring out room tones or big sound effects that that they're going to need. They can start putting that stuff together, not necessarily timing it into place because they don't have the edit, but they know they're going to need it. So you can start doing both VFX and audio way earlier. So that's super helpful. All right. All right. So you've finished editing. You've got that all together. there's some requirements that you have to do for the 48 that are absolutely important. And so it's 5 seconds of black, a title card that has your team name, title, genre, city, and date. And there's a lot of 48s out there. Even on the site, you can go watch and see how people have done fun, creative ways of doing it, or it's just slapping the text on. It just has to be there. And then the official 48-hour film project animated opening, or a title card with "This film was made for the 48-hour film project." 2022. Should change that. And then the website. And that's either or. You don't have to have both. So if you don't want to use the animated countdown, you don't have to. You can just put that on there. And then at the end of that, you have 2 seconds of black, and then your film starts. So now, so after that 2 seconds of black, you can have opening credits if you want to do it that way. If you have opening credits beyond just the film's title, you have to include all that stuff down below, which is whatever your team name presents and the title. That has to be in the beginning if you're going to be doing that. If you're just putting up the title of the movie, you can put that at the end. So those are in there. Credits at the end of the film are limited to a maximum of 60 seconds, 1 minute. And they must include that this item was made for the 48-hour film project. I think that's it for that one. Also, I guess for that, the film credits don't count towards the time of your film. So those are kind of bonus time. The only thing is you can't have story elements inside your end credits, because then that will count towards your time. And if you want to have story elements in your credits, then your whole film has to be shorter by a minute. So take that into account. So before you start, usually the first thing that I do is create proxy files for all of your editing media. And that's super simple to do. You can just pull all of your files into like Resolve and apply usually a general LUT. There's tons of tutorials out there on how to do that. And you can quickly add basic balance to all of your footage if you're shooting it in a RAW format. Which will allow you to make better decisions when you're editing, because you know, okay, this is what it could look like, so it'll be okay to use this, or wow, this is super blown out, we may not be able to use this, which is important. But it's one of those things where if you run into a problem and you don't have time to color, at least you have something applied to turn in, so it's helpful. The second benefit is proxy files are a lot less strain on your computer than they are using the raw files. The benefit of that is you spend less time having to render or wait on the computer to do things. So it's time up front that you spend, but it's also time that you save on the end. And it's even better if you have a second computer available. It can be running all the proxies and generating that stuff, and then you can be moving them over to your edit system. So you can work with that if you have. So we talked about that. Yep, so we've talked about all that now. I guess I went out of order. So delivery. This is super important. So every year, or since the pandemic started, we've been uploading files. So the types of files that we can now take are different. The maximum file size is 2 gigabytes. So what I would recommend doing is, if you're worried about that, is you can just take 7 minutes of video of anything and export it out and figure out how big it's going to be. And like if you're doing it inside of Premiere, it gives you an estimate of what the file size is going to be. But then play around with it, figure it out, figure out what compression you need to adjust to get it to that 2 gigs. It's probably not going to be a problem. So, but you can quickly test that out just to make sure you have peace of mind, and save a preset as the 48 so you know that it's going to work. Video codecs, H.264s, because we're uploading, it'll make it better for that. We're uploading to cinema48.com. And we'll talk more about that in a second. The file type will be MPEG-4, which is if you're selecting a H.264, it's going to be that. Video resolution 1080p. Now you can do 4K if you want to deliver that. It might be more difficult to fit it into the 2 gig limit, and it will take longer to upload. So just keep that in mind. If you've got Google Fiber or at home at your house or whatever, or your work, that would be just fine. That'll upload pretty quick. So aspect ratios, 16:9. Now it's the full container size. Inside of that container, you can make it ultra widescreen or whatever you want. You can make it 4:3 inside of that, as long as it's in a 16:9 container. Frame rates, all of those are acceptable. So choose one. Audio codecs will be AAC. When you choose an H.264, it's probably going to default to an AAC, but just double check that it's not MP3. Audio bitrate is 192. I think it defaults to that, but it might be a 128, so just double check that too. And these are all things that you can check now and then save your preset, so you don't have to worry about it. When you're tired and it's the end of the 48, the last thing you're going to be doing is thinking about this stuff. So, and then audio sample rates. Either one of those are acceptable. All right, uploading. So go to the Cinema 48 site. You can start now. I think Jen might have already talked about this. If not, and you need to register for the site. Now it's a different registration. It's the same, using your same login, same registration info that you did on the other site when you signed up for your team, but you need to make sure it's the same email so that they connect. You need to upload the team leader agreement before kickoff on Friday. So, and that's on that site. So it'll have places to upload all that stuff, and you can go look at that now and get comfortable with it. Yeah. So don't use Safari when uploading. There's been trouble in the past with it not working correctly, so Chrome or Firefox will do that. Yeah, the team leader agreement and team roster must be filled out before you can upload the final wrap form. So just make sure you have all of that stuff, and your producer should be on top of that. All right. So you must have a definite title, duration, runtime of the film before you can fill out the wrap-up form. So you can get all that information from your editor, and hopefully you know that stuff before you're uploading, and it's not a mad rush at the very end, but sometimes it will be. Yeah, you have to fill out the wrap-up form in one sitting. Unless that's changed, I don't think it's changed. You can't go back. You have to do it in one sitting. So once that's started, please make sure you finish it, or it causes some issues. Yeah, so step 4 for uploading, name your file properly. So if you can read there. So it has to be city, period, year, period, team name, and then the name of your film. And it's got to be in that order, so when it goes up. Cool. All right, so then you click upload film, select the file, make sure, again, it's 2 gigs. It'll generate a checksum code when you start to upload. And basically what that is just saying, this is the file, this is your team, and it puts all that information into a checksum that if something fails, like if your internet goes out, your power goes out, something crazy happens, your dog chews through your router cable, you can start uploading that same file again. It has to be exactly the same file. This is not something that you can be like, oh yeah, I started it, and then you make some changes and you try to upload another file, or just kick it out and you'll be late. So it has to be exactly the same file. Super, super important. When you see the green success bar, the film is uploaded and complete. So just watch and wait, and we'll be available. Like if you have problems, you can call us and talk to us, and we can help you through that if that's a problem. All right, next slide. Or is that it? No. Paperwork upload. All right, so as the film is being uploaded, you can also be uploading your paperwork. And this is super important. This is something that you should be doing all through the process. Like if you have a producer that's dedicated to just doing paperwork and stuff, all of this stuff can be ready to go by the time you're uploading. So you don't have to fill any of that stuff out as you're trying to upload it, because that's stressful. PDF scans, JPEGs, anything that's clear. So you can use your phone to take photos of the documents that you have to fill out. Yes, and then you can upload behind the scenes photos, film stills, a trailer, and more. So like some people do film posters and stuff like that. It's kind of fun that you can add to it. All right. Oh, yeah, so troubleshooting. So there's some things that in the past that we've run into that we just put together a list. Make sure you're using the same, like some people say, well, I can't log in to the Cinema 48 because it's not saying it recognizes it. Just make sure you're using the same email. That's been a problem in the past. The wrap-up form must be completed before you upload your film. That's also been something that people run into. They just forget they didn't upload that. So make sure you do that. Try logging out and logging back in. You know, the old turn it off, turn it back on again. If your system crashes during upload, you can re-upload the exact same file. We talked about that before. If you don't, it could be counted as late. Now, if you uploaded a film, you got it in before the deadline, and then you realize, I want to change something, you can change it and re-upload another film if you're still before the time, and then that second one will be used. So, and I think that's it. Any questions, thoughts, feelings, concerns, worries? I know that was a lot of information.
So, for all the producers and organizers in the audience, could you break down kind of like a timeline for us for when you want your finished film so that you can upload it in time? Like, how long does it take to upload?
Well, I mean, upload is going to depend on your internet speed. I think as long as you're starting it by, the time limit, I think you're going to be fine, because you can it can be uploading after. As long as you start the upload by the cutoff time, you're going to be fine. I mean, the earlier you can get it, the better. I think is the best answer. Most of them are, panically uploading at the last second, trying to get everything together. But yeah, and it's part of like having that outline in the beginning. I mean, personally, I like to give the audio department as much time as we can to fix all the stuff that we need fixed. And so at the very latest, you'd want to be turning over your final lock picture by like noon on Sunday. If you can do it earlier, that's even better. But I think having that communication and talking with them and to make sure that they have enough time to do what they want to do. And even, I mean, in the past, we've turned over locked scenes. Like maybe the first half of your movie is locked. Turn that over, and then they can start designing stuff while you're working on the rest. So just look for those little moments of things that you can do quicker. But yeah, as soon as you possibly can. Anything else?
Did you ever had any problems with the server? Like everybody doing something at the same time and the server went down?
No, because you're not. I mean, it's going to be slow sometimes, but if it fails, you can just re-upload. So it's as long as you're using the same file. So even if there is a problem, it'll be fine. Sometimes it is slower right at the time when everybody is uploading, at the last minute. So it could be going slow, but just know that if you started before the cutoff time, you're okay. So.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else?
When
Yep.
do you want final sound? Like, what's your cutoff?
Yeah. I think that's something that you need to individually figure out based on your computer. So again, I would recommend exporting out some test timelines. So if you have some timelines that are the maximum length that your film could be, do some exports with that and figure out how long it's going to take your computer to do that. And then apply different effects to things and try exporting it again. Because I think the more you try and figure out like, okay, this is the maximum it's going to be, and this is the best case scenario it's going to be, and then start backtracking from when you have to deliver. And then that's kind of your time of when you have to have all assets in.
And assume everything goes right.
Yeah, and just hope everything goes right. And it sure will.
There's another question.
Okay.
So, as the technical director for the 48, you are the one who puts together the screenings.
Yep.
What do you wish filmmakers were doing differently, or what do you really appreciate filmmakers do when they submit their films? What makes it so that you can put the best screening on possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what Andrew was talking about last with having everything set to a certain broadcast level, and he had mentioned a program to figure out, you know, your loudness. Inside of Premiere, if you're using that, there's actually a plugin called the Loudness Radar, and it will do the same thing. Like you can figure out like what your overall levels of the movie are, and that's important. I think if you have time to do that, yeah, that will help a lot. So it won't, because otherwise your film will play against other films that are, you know, correct audio levels, and then if yours is really low, like that's not something that we can adjust, because I think that we are not allowed to change your levels. So your movie's going to sound really soft comparatively. So, and that's something you guys can test now. You can start playing around with other projects you have and get comfortable with it. Or if you're a producer here, then you have your editor start playing with that stuff so they understand it, so they're not figuring it out the night of or the morning of or whenever they're figuring that out. But if you have a sound department, they should figure it out, so you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. And if you have any other questions, I guess we can talk later. Thank you.